That is really cool. So the thing about VR is, in photography, you spend so much time thinking about framing and getting the shot right. And here, you're framing 3D space. Whoever did the principal photography did a really good job like, so you're doing the 3D version of a 2D framing, and I have, as the user, as the viewer, I get to look around the space you've created. So I'm like co-creating the shot with you now. But you are circumscribing what I get to look at and how the perspective is. And you really feel it, like when she gets right up in your face, you're just like, whoa, that's uncomfortable. Too close. But you use the geometric structure from some of the sculptures to frame things. And then there's the goose over here walking backwards, and you realize, oh, this has actually been reversed.
Okay, we can start.
Okay. So back in 2023, Professor Mark Daley stepped into a pioneering role as the Chief AI Officer at Western University, a position believed to be the first of its kind at any North American university. It's a title that signals not just institutional ambition, but a broader shift in how universities are thinking about artificial intelligence. As a distinguished researcher and leader in AI and computational neuroscience, Mark actually started out in music before moving into math and computing. He now leads Western's campus-wide AI strategy and helps communities translate powerful models into ethical, human-centered practice. He is also advising our Western Sustainable Impact Fund project, mapping digital environmentalism through AI-based arts. Today with Mark, we are looking at AI as something that we build with, not just something that happens to us. So Mark, thanks for being here.
Thank you for interviewing me.
So let's start with this. What's one common wrong way people think about AI, and what's a better mental model for making good decisions tomorrow?
I think the only wrong way to think about AI is to think about it in only one way. So to think of it as a monolith. There are so many different types of AI. There are so many different ways to use AI to increase your creativity, to empower yourself, or to do the opposite. Having a mental model that's rigid and fixed isn't the right way to approach this. The right way to approach it is to approach it the same way you'd approach something like electricity. You can use electricity to help you make dinner or to light your home. It can do a lot of different things because it's a general purpose technology.
That's a very grounded example and a very helpful reframing. So Mark, you started in music and shifted into math and computing, and now you're leading Western's AI strategy as our Chief AI Officer. You have also been involved in numerous public conversations about what AI means for learning and making. So looking back across that arc, from studio to systems, what did that journey teach you about what AI actually changes in creativity?
Okay, so I listened to songs produced by a product like Suno, and they are really good now. The first couple of versions of Suno weren't so great, but Suno now, it's producing songs that are better than what some of my classmates were writing at Berkeley way back in the 1990s. And so for me, that's sort of the dystopian side of what AI can do. AI can not replicate human creativity, but can do something that's pretty. So it can create pretty pictures, it can create pretty music, and that's one way of using it, to just say, I don't actually want to be part of the creative process, I'm going to outsource that to an AI. The same technology is being used by artists all over the world now to do things that you could not have done pre-AI. So you look at a product like OpenAI's Sora that can generate videos. It's now possible for that 14-year-old kid sitting in their bedroom who's got a vision for a short movie they want to make to cobble something together. Whereas 5 years ago, they would have had to find a $2 million budget to do that. So again, the technology can either replace creativity, but it really can't, or it can be used as a new tool for expressing your creativity.
That's a great point. It reminds me of something you have said before in a podcast where you talk about like keeping learning in learning. If a piano major student lets a robot play their final performance, they have missed the point. But if like for me, like myself as an international student, if we were like struggling complex materials in a second language, using AI to translate and explain concepts in my native tongue can reduce cognitive load and improve understanding, and that feels like a win. You have also been talking with music educator this year about what we protect and what we enhance. And now, as an advisor to our Mapping Digital Environmentalism project, which this festival is part of, I'm curious about what music changed into your practice that algorithm can't replace, and what computation added that you now can live without.
Well, I want to talk about language first.
Yeah.
So in my role in Ottawa, I'm required to function in French as well as English. My French was never as strong as it should be. So the last year I've really been working hard on that. And AI isn't just a tool for making material more accessible to me, it's also an amazing language tutor. You know, I can write an email in French and send it to ChatGPT and say, what's wrong with this? It's like, okay, there's a lot wrong. And so, you know, it enables me to learn dynamically in situations where it's really relevant to me, rather than just sort of a textbook dialogue. AI in music, I actually studied composition when I started. You know, I still identify as a composer and see that as part of who I am. And I've always used digital tools, mathematical tools, because it's part of who I am. And so in the 1990s, when I was studying music in Boston, AI was really, really rudimentary. So a lot of what I was using was just sort of traditional algorithmic methods. But as machine learning and AI have become stronger, that's become more and more part of my compositional practice. So my voice as a composer, amateur composer, my voice as a composer has always been linked to technology as one of the tools to help me express what I want to do. And in the last 5 years, it's gone from being this kind of hard to work with tool to exponentially easier and easier and easier to work with. So I like to create acousmatic sound sculpture type music. And that used to require spending tens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours with a program like Super Collider, writing the code, listening, like, no, that's not wrong, I gotta fix it. Now I can describe to GPT-5, I want a Super Collider script that does the following things, and I want these partials, and I want this timbre, and it'll produce a starting point that I can then iterate on, and I can get the actual sound I wanted in 2 hours instead of 20 or 200 hours. And so using it as a tool to accelerate my own creativity. It's still my vision. I know what I want. I'm getting the machine to help me express that faster.
Totally echo that. I'm not like a artist per se, but in my role, like as a PhD student, writing, researching, and also coming up ideas and trying to put down on paper, that's really like AI really helped in terms of extending and formalizing in a ways that I probably can't do, like at least in efficient way, in such an efficient way as before. So I know these tools are not like entirely new, but they just have this like more like a leap in terms of easier, like user-friendly phase.
That's right.
So do you see anything new like in these tools shift how we define creativity in 2025 and beyond, let's say?
I think we're recognizing, and there's more and more studies showing that as judged by a human, AI can be creative. It's a different kind of creativity than human creativity, but it's creative nonetheless. And that's challenging to us as humans, and especially to us as artists, because we used to think that artistic creativity was uniquely human, that was special to us. And now we have machines that can be creative. And what does that mean about creativity? And so it opens a really complex dialogue and requires us to sort of look at ourselves and say, Maybe creativity isn't magic, maybe it's computational, and maybe that's okay.
Yeah, so it's like more like a dialogue, open space
Yeah.
that people can engage in. I know you have called yourself as a tech optimist, and you have been vocal about meeting AI as tools with open and ethical use. And all these are exciting not just because the tools are magic, but because people rally around them.
Yes.
We don't just collaborate with models, we end up collaborating with each other across the fields. So in this rapid AI revolution, they provide opportunities to untie human worth to intellectual supremacy. We can let go of this anthropocentrism and open ourselves to a more expansive, purpose-driven sense of what it means to be human in the age of AI. So in your view, what does meaningful collaboration with machines look like today, especially in creative work? And what makes a human in the loop set up genuinely good, ethically, practically, artistically? And where do you see it go wrong?
For me personally, I'm interested in art that's created by humans. Even if a machine can create absolutely beautiful art that everyone objectively agrees that's beautiful, I'm not a machine, so it's different. If Suno creates, a jazz standard and has a tenor saxophone player playing it and it's perfect, that's pretty, but I'm not a machine, so I'm not getting a lot out of that. I'd rather listen to John Coltrane, and his technique isn't perfect, right? He makes mistakes and the tone isn't always consistent, but he's a human being who lived a really hard life and is telling me about his struggles with addiction, his love for his wife, all of these things through his music, and that connects with me because it's a human. Likewise, I don't really want to read a book of poetry written by AI. Maybe other AIs do. I want to read a book of poetry written by a human,
Right.
because that human is telling me what it's like to be them. There's a French poet, Rim Batal, whose work I'm reading right now, and through her work, I'm getting an insight into what it is like being a young woman of color living in France, and that matters to me. So if you're using AI as a tool to help you express human intent, human lived experience, that's art I'm interested in. AI there is just a tool in service of the human artistic voice. If you're asking AI to generate the whole piece de novo, I'm less interested in that. Other people may be very interested in that, and I think that's fine. This is a new form of creativity, and that should be, there should be space for that as well. But for me personally, I'm interested in human artists. So the most interesting thing to me is human artists collaborating with AI as a tool, as a collaborator, but the human is still the one telling the story.
Exactly. So it's like professionalism is a technological ideal, but in real life, we are more tolerant with human imperfect and sympathetic, empathetic too about it.
I want
We
imperfection,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Because humans are imperfect.
True. It's like embracing our nature and then really confronting it.
That's right.
Yeah. So climate change and ecological crisis can be a big task if good human-machine collaboration means lighting tours up with our judgment and shared goals. While with AI, we have to hold two truths at once. So it's use land, water, and electricity, but in proven cases, it also helped cut emissions. So how do you picture human agency and collective effort working in this fast evolving human-machine mix? And what would a real society in the loop look like across discipline, sectors, and communities, so we publicly account for both the costs and the benefits?
So this is a really important question, and you said it, there's two competing truths. So one truth is, if you ask a human being to write a 20-page white paper on a business strategy topic, and you ask an AI to write it, and then you have human experts evaluate it, so you make sure they're of equal quality, the carbon footprint of the human doing the report is 1,000 times higher than the AI doing the report. There's a nice paper in Scientific Reports where some engineers actually did the math. So in that case, it's actually lower impact to the environment to have the AI do it than the human do it. The human can now spend their carbon footprint doing something that only a human can do. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Likewise, you can use AI for climate modeling to help us understand how we're changing our planet. That also makes sense to me. At the same time, Meta is building a data center the size of Manhattan. And so these data centers require real power. And right now, the cheapest sources of power are burning fossil fuels. And so the economic incentive is build a data center near a source of fossil fuels, burn the fossil fuel. I'm proud that Ontario is setting up small modular reactors. That was announced just this week. And so you can imagine a future where data centers are powered by green energy, nuclear energy, things that aren't releasing carbon into the atmosphere. And those are policy decisions. So I'm optimistic because we, the citizens of Canada, can hold our government to account and say, okay, AI data centers are fine, but they have to be green powered. That's a regulation government can make.
It sounds very promising, and we are actually moving to this end as well, with all these collective efforts. So really looking forward to it. So from here, it feels natural to talk about universities. So they are places where we learn, invent, and collaborate, and where we can actively pilot responsible futures together. So as Western's Chief AI Officer, your role is evolving as rapidly as the technology itself, but governance must keep pace and remain thoughtful. Given the wide range of perspective on AI, from those eager to accelerate AI development, to those urging ethical caution, and to practical users who see it as a helpful tool, how do you think a university should organize itself to support slow thinking and generative dissent around AI while still moving quickly enough to learn from and adapt to fast evolving technology? And where do you see artists and humanities scholars being meaningfully included in universities' AI governance or advisory structures?
There's a lot of questions there.
Yes, take your time.
So what's the role of the humanities in what's coming? It used to be 5 years ago, the number one question I got from computer science students and other students was, how do I build my own AI model? How do I do a startup? And those are great questions. Now, the number one question I get is, what is my life going to look like? Like, I wanted to be an accountant, and I just read an article that said AI is going to be a better accountant than a human. What do I do now? And back to what we talked about earlier about sort of the fundamental conceit of anthropocentrism being, I'm a human, I'm smart, and being smart, being intelligent is what gives me my merit. That's relatively recent, right? That's Enlightenment thinking. It's Descartes and Voltaire saying, yes, intelligence is what makes us special and divine. If you go back, there's philosophical traditions all over the world that have different views on what it means to live a good life, to be a good person. And those are fundamentally humanistic questions. Those aren't science and technology questions. Those are independent of science and technology. And so the number one question I'm getting asked by students is a humanistic question. And so how do we explore the humanities? We explore them critically, we explore them through direct scholarship, we explore them through art. And that's how you communicate what it is to be human. So I'm actually watching a resurgence in interest in the arts and humanities. The arts and humanities have not been a favored course of action for young people for a while. Everyone was told go into STEM because you'll get a job. And now we're on the precipice of a world where a lot of those STEM jobs are most easily automatable by AI. And a lot of people are saying, okay, well, what does it mean to be a good person then? Well, fortunately, we have a Faculty of Arts and Humanities here where there are people who study that exact question. So I think the role of humanists, the role of artists has always been essential to our society. It's the bedrock of society, but it's going to be more obviously essential to young people starting now. And I'm watching that play out. You asked about governance. That's a big question. And the fundamental principle of the academy is autonomy, academic freedom for researchers, academic freedom for students. And so what we don't want is a governance framework that says everyone has to use AI in exactly this way and only this way, because that's foolish. Even people in the same discipline will have different ideas about how they want to use the technology, and that's good. So we want a proliferation of use cases. We want people to feel empowered, and we only want guardrails at the level of don't do something unethical, like putting your students' information into ChatGPT.
As arts and humanities students, I feel honored to be included and valued in this rapidly developing technological currents. And yeah, I think it's becoming more existentially related with this technology. So I'd love to hear more. So if we bring this discussion into the context of our Western Film and Art Festival, where we are here to experiment, question, and converse about AI, art, storytelling, and our environment, I would like to invite your thoughts on the role of creative and generative AI tools in art making. So in a recent CBC interview, you share your fun experience with AI video, like Sora too.
Yeah.
So I would like to hear more about this. How do you understand this kind of AI-based art, not just in terms of how we access and consume media, but in how it might reshape aesthetic practice and creative sensibility more broadly?
So this is a really good question, and I'm going to distinguish the two different ways of using AI to generate art. What I was doing with Sora was more like a party trick. I didn't feel like that was art. That was just like, oh, cool, it can do this. So that's where there's very little human involvement. You're giving a high-level instruction, and then the AI goes and generates the whole art. On the other end of the spectrum, you have artists who are marshaling teams of AI agents to produce a vision that they have in their head. And this one is no different than Bernini in his studio. Did he make every chisel mark himself? He didn't. He had all sorts of assistants. Bernini's job was to do the clay model and then supervise. And so over here, this looks more like traditional artistic practice. And I just see AI as an empowering tool. So I can do things at a scale I would not have been able to do 5 years ago when I didn't have access to these tools. When I'm using AI to do all of the work, I just have a vague idea. I type in, make a movie about this, and it goes off and does it. That's where you're going to start to see potentially stagnation of ideas and creative norms. Because the AI is trained on everything that's come before, it's very good at emulating what's come before. But if you had an AI trained on all of 18th century and earlier Western art, would it ever invent Cubism? Maybe, I don't know, but statistically, it probably wouldn't. You need a Picasso to invent Cubism, to sort of reject everything about Romanticism. So the danger in fully AI-generated art is it's probably going to be relatively homogeneous. But maybe we find ways to push it. The models are getting smarter and smarter and more creative. But as soon as the human artist starts pushing the model to do something new, now the human artist's input is actually really essential. The human artist isn't just passively creating art. They're saying, no, that's not quite what I wanted. I want to do something different. And so now you start to blur the lines between those two distinctions, that human using AI as a tool and AI fully generating the art product itself. And there's going to be this whole spectrum, and there's going to be lots of papers written and op-eds and artistic fights about what qualifies as real art. And it's going to be really complicated, but I'm looking forward to the dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a lot to dive into. And I think it's fair differentiation of in terms of how AI tools, especially in creative fields, are being used and shaped by human context and choices. There's also many discussions or concerns over like democratizing creativity as well.
Yeah.
So here it surveys something we can't afford to gloss over, which is access and inclusion. As AI tools grow more powerful, they also introduce barriers like subscriptions, hardware requirements, and technical literacy that not everyone can overcome. So while creative possibilities are expanding, the question remains who truly gets to participate. In your view, will AI reshape not just how art is made, but also who gets to be part of this creative class?
So that's a policy question, not a technology question. We live in a world where over half of the humans on this planet own a smartphone. So when the first printing press was invented, first few printing presses, you had to be very wealthy and have the right connections to get a printing press. An average person did not have access to a printing press. Half of humanity has access to a mobile phone, to the internet, and could have access to an AI model. Canada could decide, we're going to create a Canadian AI model that is open to every Canadian citizen. If I'm being really optimistic, the UN could decide, we're going to create world AI, and it's going to be accessible to any human on the planet. If they want to study science, if they want to study art, if they want to create art, if they need help with their farm, every human is going to have access to this. Technologically, it's feasible. And so from an accessibility standpoint, that is a purely policy question. And it's up to us, as residents of planet Earth, in liberal democracies, to elect governments that care about that, care about providing access. And interestingly, even if you have to pay $20 a month to OpenAI, that's a lot cheaper, even in inflation-adjusted dollars, than wanting blue paint in Vermeer's era, right? You needed crushed lapis lazuli, and that was really expensive. He bankrupted his family getting blue paint because he loved it so much. So that's, it's always been hard to access an artist's tool. You have always needed a certain level of privilege and socioeconomic status to be able to access the tools of an artist. Marble's expensive, chisels are expensive. I think that's actually lower now. And the flip side of this, when we really talk about accessibility, if I want to be a visual artist, but I have a condition that means I don't have any manual dexterity, that's just an unattainable dream for me 5 years ago. Now, I can learn to use AI tools to express what I want. And it's not going to be as satisfying as painting each brushstroke myself. It's not going to be the same thing. But now I can summon my vision into existence, despite the fact that I have challenges that otherwise would not allow me to do that. And so that type of accessibility, I think, is profound. We're opening types of artistic practice to people for whom that's been barred in the past.
I totally echo that because I was like, we're trying to we started with digital painting and then want to try some water color painting.
Yeah.
And we went into store. Those paper and those brush and those paint are so expensive.
A good watercolor brush, Russian sable, it's expensive.
And there's so many types, so specialized.
Yeah.
But while you open up an app and start something, it's just there's still options, but it's not preventing you from clicking and applying instantly just at home. I really appreciate all the insights you shared today. I think it's very enriching. To close, I would like to return to the heart of what this festival is about: experimentation, reflection, and collective imagination. As AI continues to reshape not just how we create, but who gets to be seen as a creator, what concrete steps do you believe institutions, communities, or artists themselves can take to ensure that this transformation is genuinely inclusive and creatively just? And finally, in the spirit of this gathering, how might we, practitioners, organizers, and audience alike, be part of that transformation?
So I don't think it's up to any one person to define that. That question is too big and too important to be the decision of one person or a small committee. This is something that we as artists have to grapple with collectively, and there's going to be disagreement. There's going to be creative destruction because there's legitimate opinions ranging from you should never use AI in art creation to you should use AI for everything. And so all of those positions have merit. All of those positions have challenges. We have to have that dialogue. What it is going to mean to be the author, creator of a piece of art in 2050 is probably going to be unrecognizable to us here in 2025. It's going to shift quickly, but that shift will be a result of collectively how we value what we value. When photography was introduced, we thought that meant the end of painting, but actually it created a new art form, photography, and changed painting forever. Because representational painting is like, well, I can do that with a photograph now. Maybe I should experiment more. And so it's the same thing here. AI will create whole new forms of art based on AI and push traditional forms of art to do things that are different. So, we're at a moment of like unimaginable artistic creativity that is inclusive in a way that prior artistic revolutions haven't been. When the camera was invented, you had to have a lot of money to get a camera, and you had to have a lot of time because it was really expensive and time-consuming to take photographs. AI is much cheaper and much more widely available, so a larger group of people, larger group of potential artists and artists can access the technology. So how you engage with it as a community, as an individual artist, is entirely up to you. It's a general purpose technology. It can be whatever you want it to be, do whatever you want it to do, and you can involve as much or as little of it in your artistic practice. And I think we will find communities where people just have different taste for like how much AI do I want in my art? On the extreme, totally AI generated. On the other extreme, this is artisanal human oil painting, no AI involved.
I think exactly. AI can widen our options, but it's up to us to shape the purpose. So I feel very optimistic after hearing this as a young humanities scholars and filmmakers. So the conversation won't end here. We will carry it into the screenings, the hallways, and the share moments throughout the festival. Thank you so much for today.
All the best with the festival.
Thank you.